All right. One of the things that I think most people are recognizing is that there are different levels of what we might in the past have called project management, what is emerging or evolving into enterprise work management. And basically, the notion is that we have at the bottom level this large pool of heterogeneous, not only work but different ways to manage it. So you have maybe typical IT projects, but then you also have things like billable projects, internal software development, or external software development products, application maintenance, service requests, software development to-dos. Software development's there twice, huh? That's good, and so forth. But even outside the realm of technology, you see things like people deciding they need to, for example, have schedules for college recruiting or to put stores in place. And each one of these things, it draws on a pool of resources. They're things that people do and that reduce their availability to do other things at the most abstract level. Kind of climbing up through that, you end up with a notion of, look, people can work more or less profitably on various things. In the kind of the middle layer, now we're up in the realm of we actually can describe certain things as projects. We can describe certain other kinds of work in larger pools, like these are tickets that never kind of rise to the level of being complete projects themselves, but in fact reduce time that's available to work on other projects. And then at the very top level, you have the notion of what are people working on and what should, I'm sorry, not what are they working on, but what should they be working on? When we look at what the whole organization is doing, are we setting the right proportions when we decide these are the projects that we've chosen to invest in, these are the ones that we must invest in, and this is the work that we have to do that we just need to keep the lights on, and if that proportion gets to be too much, how are we going to actually reduce that proportion so that we're able to invest in new things, in new business? At the portfolio and the execution level, we're seeing Gartner kind of identifying these things as well. The portfolio level is around the framework that people work within and about the higher level strategic decisions. The execution level is getting it done correctly. And what's interesting is, especially in a world where the agile methodology is becoming more and more prominent, you're seeing more variations of what people call wagile at the execution level. And what that means is that executives are still deciding that they need to have certain projects completed or certain things completed by certain dates within certain budgets. But somewhere down below that, there are agile teams that are organizing their work into sprints and user stories, and Scrum Masters are working actively with those teams to pull user stories in or to shove user stories out, all within a 2 or whatever cycle, a 2-week cycle or a 4-week cycle, depending on how your sprints work, resulting in a show and tell at the end of every sprint. That is, most companies needs to coexist with the reality, again, at this higher level, that executives still have expectations around due dates and deliverables and budgets. And one of the things that we're going to talk about, and we're going to show some of in this webinar, is the fact that we are using the Dynamics platform, Microsoft Dynamics platform, to unify all these things. And so in that sense, a lot of times people who maybe are coming into this from a new perspective, when they hear Dynamics or Microsoft Dynamics, they think CRM. And I think there's an increasing a recognition that Dynamics as a platform is much more powerful and broadly applicable than that. But you'll see some of that in the demo as well, that there are in fact multiple ways to use Dynamics that extend well beyond CRM, but take advantage of the kinds of things that CRM was originally built to do. One portfolio, you will see one portfolio appearing. This is a Dynamics application. that works within Dynamics so that you are able to fully leverage Microsoft's investments in Power Apps, Flow, and artificial intelligence. But it also is purpose-built to pull together work in a way that will elevate the visibility your executives or you have into what is actually going on. And again, being able to then, having gained that visibility, make adjustments that portion work in a way that makes sense given the strategic objectives of the organization. Some of the key benefits, right, are pretty obvious. A lot of portfolio planning is disconnected. It occurs to one side in spreadsheets with manual processes that get emailed around, and it's not horribly dynamic, and it's often not connected to a comprehensive resource pool. By connecting this through the Dynamics platform, you're in a position to see across everything and have everybody, to the extent that it makes sense, be able to see the demands that other people are planning for resources and or investments in dollars. Same thing goes for capital budgeting and financial planning. Over and over, you see in organizations an annual or even longer planning cycle that produces a set of financial plans that get stapled together once a year and submitted to executives for approval, and then go back into everybody's email box, and nobody can look at them again because it's a massive effort to aggregate all that information. By pulling this together in Dynamics, we're in a position where these plans are not only live and can be looked at throughout the year, but can be tied back to what is going on, perhaps in project schedules, perhaps in Agile, perhaps in service and ticketing desks. And then, of course, it enables common status reporting across all work to the extent that that becomes reasonable, because you're now in a position to say, look, because we're leveraging the Dynamics platform and the common data service, we have all this information available. It can all be presented in the same format, even if in each individual case it is idiosyncratic. Or I shouldn't say idiosyncratic, even if in each individual case it's purpose-built for the team that's involved in that particular type of work. So you have project, typically waterfall, Visual Studio, typically agile planning, one plan leveraging the Dynamics platform to pull all that together. And we'll talk a lot about that in the demo and kind of show how that kind of stuff can work. All right, with that, I'm going to go to the demo real quickly. Again, we're going to spend maybe 10, 15 minutes in the demo. We are not necessarily going to drill down on a lot of things. This is a gloss over of what you can do. If anybody really becomes interested in this and says, look, we saw something we really like and we'd like to know more, we'd like to have a more complete demo, that'd be great. You can easily request that from Doug. So for those of you that are familiar with it, this is the modern Dynamics environment. It looks a lot different in case you are familiar with old versions of Dynamics. Microsoft has made huge performance improvements and usage improvements. You can see also, kind of interestingly, right down the side, we have a lot of different applications of Dynamics that are available and you can navigate to, including things like project management, sales, customer service, field service, one plan, and other things like that. Across the top, you have some of the classics of Dynamics navigation. Again, this is completely configurable, so this can look like whatever you want. And then down the left, you'll see me using this navigation a lot to work within this particular environment. But it can be assembled into look like whatever it is that your organization needs. One last thing, kind of in general about these demos. They are made to show everything, and so they can become a little bit confusing, and that's understandable. That's certainly not the audience's fault. When you actually implement these systems, they're very role focused. So a person's role will determine what they see and what their navigation options are, for example, down the side. And you won't have a long list of things that you would have to choose from. Any person would be able to go either through this navigation Dynamics or directly to it via hyperlink. So opportunities, One of the things that, again, we want to kind of talk about, we're going to use it through a lens of working from either project requests or project opportunities. But again, you're going to hear me repeat this many times. All kinds of work goes on across the organization. The key is going to be that the work gets planned and is ultimately assembled in a way that enables somebody to roll all this up and see it. So we can have a list of open opportunities of things that we could work on. Now, this could be connected to sales, or again, this could be a basic list of requests for projects if you had it internally, or it could be anything else that you wanted to call as a possible initiative, ideas, what have you. I'm going to zip into this particular opportunity real quickly. And a couple of other elements that I want to call your attention to. You have a configurable workflow across the top. Now this will change. You'll see it change over the course of the demo depending on what kind of thing we're doing. So the workflow is very flexible, very configurable. Under each node on the workflow, you're able to see what you need to do in order to get through a particular stage if that's the way you want to set it up. You don't have to do that, and it can be a lot less complicated if that's the way you want it to be. But the flexibility is there to basically do anything you want. Now this is basic information, again, from across what would be an opportunity. These are all completely configurable as well. So the information that you see here would need to be the information that you wanted to see, and these tiles and how they're laid out are all part of what goes into actually configuring a working system. But let's real quickly click over onto the work plan. And the work plan, you'll see this appear over and over again. This is part of the solution that Microsoft implements. The work plan is something that can exist associated with almost any kind of work that you want. And it can incorporate work from other systems as well. So, but in this case, I'm just going to drill down a little bit deeper and show, look, basically this is a basic work breakdown structure. You can have a start date, end date. You can assign resources to it. In this case, these are generic resources, and you can have a progress that goes along with that. And then, of course, if you want to see this in terms of a Gantt chart, you can do that as well. Zoom out a little bit. So the basics of project management are there. Now, the key, again, is that as you assign resources to this, and I will repeat myself, and so I'll apologize in advance, but I did a point that I want to make. As you build out this plan for this opportunity, you're going to assign resources to this. What does it need to take this opportunity to get what does it take to get this opportunity completed, for example? You're going to draw on resources that may have other work to do, whatever that looks like in your organization. So within this, we're able to see various other pieces that you'd expect to see with an opportunity, including things like playbooks, resources, work orders, and so on and so forth. So having kind of moved through and having created an opportunity, we're now going to take a look at a list of potential projects. Now, right away, I think one of the things that you may be asking is like, okay, these are all projects. How does this relate to Agile? And that will be the subject of a different demo, but Microsoft actually has tools to integrate with various, for example, Agile systems, including Azure DevOps, but also things like Jira and ServiceNow, where if it makes sense to incorporate those kinds of methodologies into a more waterfall style project, we're able to roll that information up. Again, so kind of the basics of the system, you're able to see a list of projects down the front, navigation. These columns are all completely configurable. And the first thing I want to call your attention to is now that we are in a project proper, there's a different workflow. However, the same functionality is available and present where you can click on a node and see what it took to get between each one. Each one of these cards now presents different information that's probably more relevant to a project manager, or somebody who's interested in a project than necessarily just an opportunity. I'm able to come in and take, again, a look at a work plan. In this case, it'll be the same work plan, but we're able to then see, well, I'm able to look at this and drill down, have resources, the basics. If I wanted to say, oh, now, I don't really want to do this in terms of in terms of a Gantt chart. I simply just want to do this in terms of a Kanban board. I'm able to support that as well, depending on how complex the project is or isn't. Related items include the things that you'd expect. In this case, I'll click on project risks. Project risks can be, again, this view can be configured and accessible in whatever way would make sense for a particular role. I'm going to click on this, and again, I'll see that I can create a work plan, in this case, specifically for this particular risk that will enable me to do things like, again, planning my workers' day or time in a way that makes sense in particular for this risk, but that's still integrated with the overall whole stream of work that people are engaged in. So if you can imagine, you have lots of different things, and in this case we've already seen three: an opportunity, a project, and a risk on a project, where somebody has felt the need to do some level of planning for making sure that these things are completed in a satisfactory fashion. But I'm using the same people over and over again, so I need to see what is it that each one of these people is engaged on across the enterprise, not just on one particular little piece. And I need to be able to look at that again, kind of in aggregate, and roll it all up. We're able to do things, of course, with risks or any other item like issues or other things that you might want out of to enable your project management processes, including activities, connections, audit history, things like that that go along with those kinds of things. So having kind of moved through three basic forms of work management and kind of being able to see that we can, in fact, put people across the same kinds of things, it makes sense to be asking, well, okay, you've shown us how to put people onto various pieces, but what you haven't done is kind of shown us the all-up view. So in this particular view, portfolio analyzer view, we have the ability to show literally everything that is going on in the system. And you can see that this includes things like not only the name of whatever it is. This can be an issue, a risk, a project, an opportunity, a case, any particular entity that you thought made sense as a work management node, for lack of a better word, in your environment. You'd be able to put on this list or show on this list, and you'd be able to see what was going on at a glance across the side in terms of Gantt chart and things like that. And you'd be able to make some decisions now. And I think that this is probably where it all comes together in a way that makes some sense. How am I able to actually make some decisions around these things? Well, down below, we're able to look at this in various terms. And this is not the one I wanted. I want this one. And probably the thing that people are most interested in is saying something like, okay, so I've got this batch of work, possible work in, and you're able to filter this by various mechanisms too. So just to be clear, you might end up with thousands or even tens of thousands of things across an organization. There's obviously a limit on how much people can actually look at any one time. And of course, we provide the tools to filter that down so that you are able to work in a manageable amount. But I'm able to kind of see across here that Lori, for example, has a lot of red, right, indicating that she is engaged in too many things across too many, different types of items. And I can open this up and I can look a little bit deeper and see that she's on something called hub upgrade, server upgrade, and ultraviolet. So let me look up here and see if I can see that. Hub upgrade, server upgrades. So I'm able to take a look right away, and the first basic thing I can do is say, what's it look like if I just decide not to do that? Oh, look, I've resolved Lori's bottlenecks. That's great. I can put that back in and they'll reappear. I can filter this, of course, by active and proposed and things like that and have that make sense. I can also take this thing and I can drag this around if I want to change Lori's total commitment in terms of time. That'll recalculate what she is red on or green on as well as you go forward. She's got some that's already locked in here. And that's great. So now you're able to taking in everything from across the enterprise that people might be working on. Again, it's absolutely anything. It could be a project task, it could be, like I said, an opportunity, it could be a case, it could be agile work, they could be assigned to a sprint. It really doesn't matter. We're able to kind of see what your resource bottlenecks are, and we're able to start to make adjustments. And maybe even more interesting, I'm able to do things like drag and drop prioritization. So I'm now seeing this in priority order. Now, there's a lot of different ways to do prioritization and to calculate prioritization, and we support them. But one of the most basic things we see is just an actual ask to be able to drag and drop prioritization. So if I move this up here, it recalculates everything automatically. And you're able to start to do analysis around what's above the line, below the line. What do I, if I wanted to come down here and alt change these things to proposed, active, or closed, this is configurable as well. You can change them to paused, any number of things that you can start to make sense just in a drag and drop environment, allowing you to make decisions very quickly around what it is that people should be working on or need to be not working on, maybe more to the point. And in that case as well, I'm able to come in and I am able to, where is the button here? I'm able to save these in terms of scenarios as well, and I'm not seeing my navigation right now, so I must be somewhere that I shouldn't be. But I'm able to save these scenarios and make comparisons as I go forward. So, not only are we able to capture and plan everybody's work, we're able to look at it all up and make really constructive decisions about the way that those kinds of things come together. Now, one of the last kind of pieces, this has been a kind of a very project-centric or task-centric, I've got this and I need to work on it. But there are people in most organizations that in fact see the world entirely from the perspective of resources. That is, they either need to keep their resources fully utilized, or they need to make sure that they're not working on too much, or they just need to be doing basic capacity planning and looking into the future and seeing, oh my gosh, we need to hire this many business analysts in order to make these things work out. We also support that whole cycle as well. So in this case, click down here on a couple different items. We're able to kind of look at the world strictly from a resource-centric perspective. And again, how this comes together and what the hierarchy is and how you filter this if you've got hundreds of resources or thousands is subject for a different matter, but we support multiple ways to analyze this so that it becomes something that's a human being can work with. You're able to look at this and say, look, I just want to be able to know that Amy is, for example, being used enough but not too much. Same thing goes for Daniel. I want to be able to look at this in terms of budget or maybe forecast or maybe actuals or revenue, and I want to make some comparisons. I want to look at this in terms of FTE hours percentage, whatever it is that you wanted to do. And I wanted to do things like, can I commit resources? Can I make a request for resources? Let's see if I have any that are in a state of just request. It doesn't look like. But I'm able to do this at a glance and follow a workflow where, for example, people might request a type of resource for a project, then thereby signaling demand that we're going to need more developers. But I'm also able to say, you proposed that, but I'm not interested in providing that. I want to say you're not going to get that person, or that you may want that person, but you're not going to get that person, or we just don't have those kinds of resources. You're going to have to push that out, whatever it is that you want to do. So you're able to at the same time you're doing planning on a task or item kind of centric basis. You're able to look at this from a perfectly resource centric basis and provide a workflow that enables you to say, look, you may want those people, but you're not going to get those people, or what have you. And again, because this is all built on the Dynamics platform, because these are all using the same resources from across your enterprise, you're in a position to answer and look at all up questions and make all up judgments and assessments, which ultimately should be the goal. So we also do things like expenses, time off, timesheets. Those things are great, and they all end up in there as well. I'm not going to dwell on that for the purposes of this demo. But I'm going to kind of go over very quickly to my dashboards. We have a ton of flexibility due to Power BI and Dynamics itself to then kind of take and re-aggregate this information. Again, keeping in mind that each role is going to see what they want to see. We're able to supply exactly what somebody might want to look at. So I'm able to look at issues from across a portfolio or across the enterprise, if that made sense, in a way that we could bubble things up and see them by pie chart or whatever visualization made the most sense. I'm able to, if I have something in it called a risk or a resource manager, I'm able to look at these things in terms of demand across various bars. If I had something, I saw a risk manager in there. No, I didn't. If I want to look at just my agile PPM portfolio, I'm able to take a look at it in terms of all up again, in terms of ROI, maybe strategic bubble chart, variance, sprint burn up, things like that, depending on what you needed. And it goes on and on. I'm able to actually do exactly whatever I need to do in this environment in order to make the kinds of top level strategic decisions that executives typically aren't able to make today because everything is still remaining and segmented. And by the way, as well, we're able to put these things in dashboards in Power BI or other reporting tools if required, so that nobody even actually has to come into Dynamics if this is an environment that they don't want to leverage. All right. So basic theory, what you just saw in the demo, work is everywhere. I mean, this makes sense. Organizations are organized around work and doing things. But Dynamics provides us for the first time with a vehicle to pull all these things together in a way that makes sense and to make decisions about it. And it's not just a static report. It's not just somebody filling out a spreadsheet. It's a whole platform that enables us to really make some sensible decisions across all these isolated silos. The work management platform, you can see there are tons and tons of ways that people go about doing work. And I don't think that's any surprise to anybody. But what might be a surprise is that we can start to pull this all together, again, on the platform in a way that leverages Power Apps and Flow and everything else. And we're able to leverage all the tools that you might have, in your current environment, including Microsoft Project, if you've got really complex schedules, Visual Studio or Azure DevOps if you're working in Agile. We're able to integrate with Salesforce, ServiceNow, SAP, and everything else as well, if that's really important. The Dynamics platform is designed to be very flexible. And then we're finally able to kind of deliver all these functions across the top. We're able to look at portfolios at the top level, schedules, resource, financial, time management, and provide business intelligence across all of it. Dynamics is, again, probably a lot more than many people realize. It is a comprehensive business and technology platform. We are obviously not talking about it as a CRM or as a customer engagement platform, but it is those things as well as a field service platform and as well as a project management platform. And we already did the demo. So unified work management, all your roles get exactly what they want. They see the world in a way that makes sense to them. They're not asked to step into a world of things that are built for somebody else that they're being forced into. This has bedeviled the work management space for years. If you have a ticketing system, everybody thinks everything's a ticket. If you have a project management system, everybody thinks everything's a project. If you're an accountant, everybody thinks everything is a GL code. The platform puts us in a place where, yes, if you're working on tickets, you can work on tickets and you can work in a way that makes sense to you. But your work and what you're assigned to all still rolls up in a way that executives can make a solid set of decisions. And it all works together in one big piece so that you're working through common governance and control, which provides us with the all-up view and makes a more responsive and agile organization on the whole. So Dynamics 365, many people already own Dynamics 365, which is great. That means you're leveraging what's already in place. This is all Microsoft and Office 365, so if you're already a Microsoft client, you're already using things like Active Directory and you're already familiar with Office tools and you're already familiar with SharePoint. You may be less familiar with Dynamics, but it's all the same and all leverages the same tool suite. It's a common IT platform, again, for development and customization. So as you kind of move forward, you're able to build Power Apps and use Flow to do other custom applications on top of this without having to kind of launch off into a more complex environment. And ideally, you're able to retire multiple solutions that are currently doing various things that maybe are doing a little bit of here and a little bit there, and you're able to look at it and say, look, if we can do all this in Dynamics, then we don't need to do that over there anymore. Next steps, we can offer a free project service trial, although it will be pretty limited. We are also willing to have a demo that is more business strategy workshop where we can talk about features and drill a little bit deeper into requirements. We are happy to be contacted with any additional questions. I went through this demo really quickly. I hope the concepts resonated and made sense. I hope that some piece of this was appealing and attractive, and that you'll reach out and contact us to talk about it further.